We're talking with Benny Ron today. That is Dr. Tetsuzan Benny Ron. And your PhD is in what? Was it chemistry? Was it biology? Or
My
a combination?
Yes, it's a combination. My PhD is from the zoology department at the University of Hawaii, Manoa.
That's what
But specialty in aquaculture, and during my PhD I did some mathematical modeling of hormonal distribution.
not everybody gets a chance to do that, so that makes you special, honestly.
Well, I worked a lot on physiology of fish, and eventually ended up in Israel, department head for genetics and physiology.
But then you came back.
Yes, I was called back to University of Hawaii to be the aquaculture coordinator.
And now you have evolved that into aquaculture specialist in extension and training at the University of Hawaii, UH Manoa.
This is in the Department of Human Nutrition, Food, and Animal Sciences under CTAR, the College of Tropical Egg.
And human resources.
And human
We still can't figure out why human resources works with tropical agriculture.
What do you mean why? They build the future workforce.
Workforce.
Of course.
You think it started out that way? You know what I think it started out? It started out in the plantations that way. In 1910, the university was established in 1910, and it was the whole thing was kind of an experience for the plantations, and so they were doing research on crops and plantation technology, if you will, agricultural technology, but they also had to work with the workforce there on the plantation. That's why I think it's a combination of those two things.
I think that we need to go further back. We need to go to President Abe Lincoln, who actually initiated the land-grant institutions. And CTAR is a land-grant institution. University of Hawaii is a land-grant institution.
That's true, yes.
And the whole idea behind land-grant is to support the farmer and his family. So there's a lot to do with workforce development, a lot to do with training of the farmer and his family.
We're gonna get into that. We're gonna talk about changing the world as we know it. And it's the ultimate sustainability. But the first thing I need to know, Dr. Benny Ron, is what is this cap over here with the funny spelling? Is that the way atoll is spelled?
Yes, as I told you earlier, it's atoll or not atoll.
And that's the name of the show. It's atoll or not atoll.
And the idea came when I applied for a grant to NOAA with the idea to train the people, community in Hawaii and in the Pacific Islands in order to give them the tools to manage their living resources and aquaculture. So since the Pacific Islands is known for atolls, the acronym stands for Aquaculture Training Online Learning.
Ah, okay. Well, we have to explore that. It was just a coincidence that it just happened to spell out the word atoll.
It was in purpose.
I've got it. Okay. So, okay, we got aquaculture training. That's clear that's very necessary in the world we live in the 21st century. But online learning, that's the one I want to ask you about. So how have you conglomerated the two ideas? What kind of online learning are you using for the aquaculture training, Benny?
Let me take you a little bit back.
You do take me back.
To 2008, when the University of Hawaii asked me to apply for the job, I was heavily involved in research in genetics and physiology, endocrinology, biorhythms, mainly working on marine fish. Also being advisor to the European Union and Commission in marine biotechnology. And then out of the blue came the offer. And since I was many years a farmer, fifth generation farmer, started my farming at the age of 6.
On a kibbutz.
No, in Moshava, which is a little town that was actually founded by my grandfather, and
What's the name of the little town?
Nes Ziona,
Which is what
which
part
means
of-
it's
what
the
part of-
flag of Zion.
Where is that in
It's
Israel?
next to Rehovot, where the Weizmann Institute.
Which is where?
Rehovot. It's about 30 kilometers south of Tel Aviv.
Okay, okay, on the way to Gaza.
No, far away from there.
Okay.
Anyway, and I was always connected to the land. Because before I went to the academia, as you may know, I was not born in the academia. I was a farmer, full-time job. And that's what paid eventually for my undergraduate studies in animal science at the Hebrew University. So for many years being in research and challenging molecules, when I had this opportunity to come to Hawaii as a coordinator, it opened for me a window to go back to work with the end consumer, what I called, and this is the farmer. Because I believe that whatever we do, we must support our farmers, and we talked about it in the past. And the main reason is that they are the only one that produce food. All the rest of us are, in a way, a parasite.
So part of your mission is to train people. It's interesting because if I just heard aquaculture coordinator or specialist, I would say, well, there's a man who knows a lot about aquaculture, and he will be dealing with, the academic side and the developmental side of aquaculture in Hawaii. But you've gone further than that, it sounds like. You're into the notion that we have to teach everybody how to do this, and we are going to make every effort to train as many people as we possibly can with a hands-on education on how to do it. That's where you've gone, isn't it?
Well, I would take it even further because when I came here just to give my first talk here, so the committee will see me, the search committee, I came with this idea, and the good thing was that I had a job, so I had nothing to lose. I can come up with any crazy idea that I really believed in, so I was free to do that. And I came with this idea that actually we need more than just training. We need to connect. We need to engage a lot of people in Hawaii, in the Pacific, and beyond. So
engage with what?
With how to produce food.
Okay.
So in my talk, I made a whole plan of how it's going to work. And I said Hawaii actually doesn't have resources. I mean, the main resource of Hawaii is tourism. But this is not what I call it sustainable and healthy resource, because every country has to produce, I believe, minimum of 50% of what they are using in food. So I said, since we don't have those resources, what Hawaii has is the location between East and West. And Hawaii has wonderful university and wonderful library. And I said, what we need to do is to become the lighthouse of information for the Pacific and beyond, and that we will give most of the information for free. We have the Aloha Spirit, we're going to use that, and then we're going to cause a ripple effect. And this ripple effect will bring back a tsunami of goodwill.
I'm with you 100% on that. That's what Hawaii's role has got to be, not only in aquaculture, but in a lot of other things. Aquaculture, we have a lot to give, though.
Right.
We have an enormous amount to give because of our environment and because of our opportunity here. So, the thing about it is, though, that you have a lot of training to do because you have to bring people into the 21st century and have them use high tech. And as I recall, when you first started this, you brought in a guy from the Virgin Islands.
Yeah, Jim Rakosi, Dr. James Rakosi, expert for aquaponics and biofloc.
And actually what happened, in a fairly short period of time, you had dozens, if not hundreds, of aquaponic farmers actually feeding themselves.
It's like a brush fire. Aquaponics now is everywhere in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And our college, CITAR, is giving more and more workshops, and we have it online, and it goes all over the world. And we need to take in consideration that the interesting thing about aquaponics is that one of the reasons it's so popular is that a lot of people can do it in the backyard. A lot of schools can use it.
Tell them people what aquaponics is.
Well, aquaponics is a symbiotic system where you grow both aquatic organisms and plants. And actually, whatever come from the aquatic organisms, the waste that coming from the aquatic organism, is the base for nutrition of the plants that grow. The plants play a role in filtering those chemicals in the water that are harming to the fish, which are waste product of nitrogen, for example, ammonia or nitrite. And the building force here, or whatever makes this system work, the engine of the system actually is bacteria, microbes. These are nitrifying bacteria. They take the ammonia, which is a waste product of metabolism of the fish after they ate, and breaks it into nitrite, which is also toxic. And then there are other nitrifying bacteria that breaks the nitrite into nitrate, and the nitrate is a component, is a mineral that can be used by the plants to grow. Now, once the plants use the nitrogen in the water, then the water go back into the fish tank, and it's clean and healthy for the fish. So basically, they also play as filter system for the fish. The great news, we don't have to add water other than that evaporation. So it's a closed system, what we call recirculating aquaculture system.
You know what's amazing about that is, people, scientists, and everyday people have been looking for the perpetual motion machine in science like forever. Leonardo da Vinci looked for it, yeah,
Right.
and we never found it yet. We found a lot of, minimal friction kinds of things. This is kind of like a perpetual motion machine.
Yeah.
This is the perfect environment that keeps on going by itself, and you put in so little and get so much out. You can live on aquaponics.
You can live on
People do live on
aquaponics, but I have to have a disclaimer here.
Okay,
Okay, before
fair.
everybody gonna go sell the cars and everything and go buy
Okay,
all the
I
aquaponics system.
hope this isn't too negative, yeah.
It's not negative at all. What I'm trying to say is that those systems, the aquaponics systems, it has to have the know-how. That means the people that are, what I mean is the people that are dealing with it or training themselves or trying it, they can, if they don't do it right, they can find it very expensive relatively to whatever they can get or the income or the different plants that they grow, etc. So that means they need to really look into it in a very smart way and go take workshop and take the 8-tour program which teach.
Do I have to have a master's degree in zoology or
You don't need to
biology or
have
chemistry?
anything. You need just to have a goodwill and a sense of logics. And we teach that, and the whole 8-tour program is open to 16 years old and above.
Mhm.
And in purpose, it's a non-credit class, so it's open, and we sell it via Outreach College at University of
I'm
Hawaii.
talking
Manoa.
about that.
And
So
what I'm
I
trying
can
to say
come
that on the
down-
commercial, what we try to do now is validate this thing on a commercial level. Now that's the real trick, is to take the aquaponics from the backyard and run serious commercial system.
Make a living.
That you can basically run a system that bring you every year, let's say $100,000 income.
That's enough to put your kid in school.
That's right.
So this is really interesting. Is there anybody out there now who's doing it as a business and actually making cash money, aside from satisfying the needs of his family for food? Is there anybody
Yes,
out
there are. There are. I don't want to put names right now because
no need.
we might hurt those who we do not mention. But there are some people in Hawaii,
Yeah.
and of course outside Hawaii,
Yeah.
that already starting to make money. However, as a researcher, as a specialist, I would like to see it validated. I would like to see that the numbers, so I can feel comfortable going to other people and say, this works.
What do you mean, the numbers of?
Of what you have to put inside. You have to take in consideration is the efficiency of the feed that you're going to use.
Yeah.
We want to make sure to use as, if possible, not to use at all fish meal in the feed, which the fish meal plays an important role in the protein that comes into the system to allow to grow muscles on the fish, because what we eat in the fish mainly is the muscle. So if you want to be efficient, you want to give them the right food, the appropriate food, and the idea is not to take from the ocean other fish in order to feed fish. So there are all sort of ways. So we want to see this aspect happening. The other aspect is to see the energy, because you have to put energy for the motors, from the engines that drive the water, because you have a tank of fish, and then you have to take the water and deliver it to the plants. Now, once you move anything, it's energy-related motion. And so you need to have that in consideration. And then we have to supply air to make sure we have aerobic environment, both to the fish and to the plants, and of course to the bacteria that drives the system. So this is another thing to consider. Now, the plants need light. So if you do it outside, wonderful. But in some places in the United States, for example, where they have drought and they have dust storms, they start moving indoors. So that means you need to take in consideration you might need to supply some light. So all this is energy cost we're talking about. And if you have drum filters, for example, if you have very intensive system, you need to clean them. You need to move things. So we talk about energy. So eventually, you need to find the right crop. When I say crop, it can be fish or shrimp, and it can, and on the other hand, the plants. Mm-hmm. And so it's vegetables and fruits. And once you summarize everything and you see what is the input in energy and in seeds or other expenses that you have, and of course feed is a major thing. And I didn't even go into diseases, either in plants or fish, that might take toll, and you have to take care of that too. So what I need to see is really the numbers. We need to validate it to see that we can go on a big scale commercial system. We know already that in the backyard it's working. Some people, it's more expensive for them. And some people, if they do it right, it's minimal. You have to take in consideration that we are lucky in Hawaii, we can use solar systems. So the solar systems basically will bring enough energy to run air pump in order to drive the water and bring about aerobic system, aerobic conditions.
Strikes me that, you can lay this down in a book or online. I was going to ask you about your Aquaculture Hub, which is a famous, world famous website already with all kinds of, bristling with all kinds of creative stuff on it. But if I'm an ordinary person and I look at that and I follow the gouge, I follow the checklist, I put it all together, so sort of a menu system, I want to grow tilapia, and I want to grow whatever kind of vegetable is involved. Tomatoes. This is what I do. Right. And here's a checklist of exactly what I want to do. Even if I am trained in science, I'm going to need consultation. I'm going to need somebody to come out and look and do those metrics you were talking about. I'm going to need a counselor, an advisor, an uncle person who comes out and checks it out, make sure I don't go off the track. And I'm going to need him on a regular basis too. It's like call it an aquaponics doctor, who says, oh, it's working okay, or maybe it's not working okay. You have to tune it this way and tune it that way. So who does that?
Well, first of all, that's why in the whole land-grant system, you have 3 types of people, and sometimes you have in the same person 3 types of people. Which means when they build the land-grant system, there are 3 components that is based on. education or instruction, research, and extension. And when I say extension, it's basically the person that goes out from the lab and meet the farmers and help them with the know-how.
So that's what extension is all about.
That's what extension
And we've
is.
seen extension back into the 19th century, I think, where there were extension services in agriculture.
It started in 1865 with Abe Lincoln.
Okay, and so you go out into the field, you talk to
Exactly.
people, you train them right there on the ground.
Or
And you show
you
them-
bring them in to a workshop, or you take them to the atoll via online, because we have to remember, if I'm gonna be creating here a workshop
Yeah,
on Oahu at the University of Hawaii Manoa,
yeah,
what about the guys on Kauai? What about the guys on Molokai?
absolutely.
What about the guys in
You got to be
Rota?
everywhere. I can't imagine that you could have enough resources to extend to all the people who would be the market for this.
So what we need to do
Yeah.
is, on top of the workshop, existing workshop that CITAR is doing and the university is doing on Oahu, we need to have workshops on other islands. Like if you remember in August
You do
2010, I had a big workshop in collaboration with the University of Hawaii Hilo when we brought Jim Rocosi, Wilson
that
Leonard.
was a big deal.
Yeah, Wilson Leonard from Australia, Professor Gidi Hulata from Israel. There were local people that also taught,
Yeah.
like Glenn Martinez.
Yeah.
So what we need is, beside those workshops, is as many extension agents as possible, expert in the area, so the local people can go see them. Or
Did they do
come,
it for free?
well, if they are being employed by University of Hawaii, by CITAR, then they get a salary for that. Now, interestingly enough, the whole story with aquaponics brought about a blooming era of farmers that become so-called extension people. And Glenn Martinez is a wonderful
They give
example.
back.
They just go out to the community. What they do on certain systems that they build, they get a payment for that. But what Glenn is doing, for example, he on certain issues every weekend, he can go to help either a church or a school, and they pay only for the material, while he provides the expertise and sometimes the manpower. I'll give you an example. Right now, as we speak, students of the atoll program from Rota, this is the Northern Mariana Islands, here in Hawaii since January, and they taking the atoll. Actually, they finished all the classes already, and they already passed the exams. But every day they do hands-on work. So the whole idea is that by the time they go back in April to Rota and to the CNMI, they will be expert right there. They will be still in touch with us, but they're going to help the local people there with building for them aquaponic system, and this is going to generate.
So you're going to check them out.
Oh,
You're going to
you
make
bet.
sure that they're up to it. Because, I mean, I can see that if you don't tune it right, it fails. And then
course.
everybody's hoo-hoo about that.
Well, that's why they build here systems, and we watch them build systems, and we check them out.
And then they duplicate the same process back home.
They will. But right now,
Yeah.
they're doing hands-on.
Yeah.
And just a few days ago, they built a whole system by themselves.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, this aquaponics thing, I mean, you kind of made it real in Hawaii, as far as I can see. It wasn't happening before you brought it here, and it's a great prospect. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who have come and will come to feed their families and maybe hopefully make $100,000 a year if they do it right, really tune it right. But it's not all over the islands yet, Benny, right?
Well,
There's a long way to go before we feed
well,
ourselves.
let me tell you
in
something.
large
First of all,
numbers.
I don't want to take the credit at all for being the only one. There are wonderful people who belong and working as extension people in CITAR. They're teaching it. And there are people who are on the Big Island, on Maui, on Kauai, that are doing wonderful work, teaching and actually expanding I would call it the aquaponic membership. And it became really like a brush fire all over the United States. I mean, it came to the point where they start having a yearly conference only on aquaponics. Now, I come from Nashville, Tennessee, where we had the triennial aquaculture meeting called Aquaculture 2013, and aquaponics had a whole.
It was a few weeks ago.
Yep, only 2 weeks ago, and they had a whole section only on aquaponics, and they have also exhibition where they have all the companies coming and trading, trade show, and they have specialized tanks and variety of tools and equipment only for aquaponics.
So they're selling this. I mean, they're marketing it at the trade
It's a whole
show.
economy. It's a whole economy. I mean, you can go on Amazon and buy aquaponic systems. You can go to Aquatic Ecosystem and buy.
Can you buy the individual pieces? In other
Yep.
words, if you
Yeah,
wanted
you
to
can
set
go
up
and buy stuff.
a
And you
highly
can go on
designed-
Craigslist and find things and just make up your own system.
or you can go to Lowe's Hardware or
Well, I don't.
Home Depot,
I don't think they don't have complete systems yet.
no, but they have the pieces.
They have pieces. Yeah.
And so if you're really akamai about this,
You can
do it with
But I would challenge everybody
yeah.
to go and do it from recycled material.
That'd be totally sustainable.
And then it's going to be nice.
So where is it going? I mean, I would like to see, however the university coordinates and proliferates and trains and whatnot and offers online instructions and extension people and all this. I'd like to see this all over the islands, but I don't have the sense that, although there's a lot of people doing it, I don't have the sense that it's an industry that's feeding a substantial percentage of our population just yet. Am I right?
You're right. And that's why I mentioned before. Right now, the Hawaii Department of Agriculture led, and the aquaculture and animal, livestock service, led by Todd Lowe, are going into testing commercial system, and they want to evaluate how
When you say commercial system, you mean a system that
can feed actually substantially
A
in
business.
Hawaii, a
For
business,
a
a big
business.
business that they can sell to Foodland or Times or Costco, the product,
Okay.
and going to bring
industrial dimensions here.
commercial. I call it commercial.
Okay.
And because these are the commercial farms that eventually we want to see in the state growing up, because they're going to have what we call it best practice management,
Yeah.
and they will have to come up with high standards
Yeah.
and traceability, because all the big supermarkets
Can I
they want
go
to.
into the supermarket right now today and buy, food, any kind, either the fish or the vegetables that have been made in aquaponics?
You might, but not always you will know it. I hope that we come to an era here in Hawaii that, like today, if I go to the supermarket, at least in, I would say most big supermarkets, most chain, you can look for local grown. And this is another wonderful thing that was developed with the collaboration of CTAR and Hawaii Department of Ag, to have certain labels on produce that will tell us, the consumers, that
That's
this is
great.
local grown.
That should be easy, right?
But we want to have
It's a
one more
pride
step
thing.
to tell them this is from aquaponics. But we don't have that from aquaponics. Yeah.
Well, but everybody who generates the food from the aquaponics could make a label, right?
See, every label that you do, it has to be coordinated with the State of Hawaii Department of Ag and Department of Health
It
and
has
so
to
forth.
be, it has to be true. Whatever it says,
Exactly,
it has to be
exactly.
true.
There is a certain process that you need to go
Yeah,
through.
yeah. What about the, the local perception of tilapia, what is it called, St. Peter's fish?
St. Peter fish, yeah.
Get in Israel, and I had St. Peter's fish in Israel.
Yeah, the whole story is related to Jesus and St. Peter in the Sea of Galilee, what we call it in Israel, Kinneret. And when the people were hungry and Jesus fed them, with tilapia.
That's perfect.
So if it was good then, I think it should be good today.
Yeah, it should be.
And it is. It is.
But a lot of people locally, they think that
I think not
tilapia
anymore.
is a garbage fish.
I
no?
think that the whole attitude has been changed, and actually the local tilapia that is being grown here in Hawaii
Yeah,
is
it's a better quality.
not only that it's better quality. I can tell you that compared to the U.S. continent,
Yeah.
here we get better prices
Oh,
for the tilapia.
you mean higher prices?
Higher prices.
So-
The farmer gets higher prices, and this is surprisingly good news. And so it's worthwhile to invest in this fish. The good news also that it's a wonderful fish for aquaponics. It works well with the aquaponics system.
Yeah.
And I hope that will come a day where that you will go to the supermarket and you will not need to buy tilapia from the Asian countries and know that you buy tilapia island fresh.
We can do that. So do you think somebody can really make a big buck on this with a
I would like-
commercial scale?
I would like to believe so, but again, as a scientist,
What's
until I see the data, I cannot tell
what's
you.
holding us back?
Well, as I said, efficiency. Because when you grow in a large scale,
Yeah.
and every system, by the way,
But you could do that because you know how to do it. You could say to somebody who has a few bucks, I'm going to show you how to make 50 acres of aquaponics.
I don't talk like that.
No, I'm
I don't
it's
talk
a
like that.
hypothetical
No,
question.
no, but it's not the kind of behavior I do as a principal. You know what I mean? Because
But we'll have to talk
it's
after.
justified because one of the questions that a good farmer can ask, and I was a farmer enough time to tell it to the extension people who came to me, is like, if it is so good and profitable, why you don't do it yourself?
Right.
So I'm always careful about that because we need to make sure, because there are charlatans, they are everywhere. And we have to be very careful. And that's why we talk about university researchers cannot go around, or extension people cannot go around and just tell everybody it's a magic. These days are gone. We need to do science and we need to measure things, and we're going to make sure to protect that farmer from making mistakes and make sure and be responsible that they can make profit out of it.
All I'm telling you, though, is that if you came to me next week and said, Jay, I have 50 acres, me, Benny, because I know about these things, I have 50 acres under, quote, cultivation as aquaponics, and I am selling to Safeway, lots of stuff every day to Safeway. I would say, good for you. And not only that, it's proof of concept to a lot of people. They would say, if Benny can do it, I want to do it too, right?
Yep.
It's a leadership thing. That's what you should do. I'll help you, okay?
Okay.
What? Okay, let's move on to another topic now.
Okay.
We have in Hawaii, under DLNR, the legal ability, and it's the only state, as far as I know, that actually has this provision, to actually lease open ocean land to fish developers, to fish entrepreneurs, to aquaculture fish entrepreneurs. It's a fantastic possibility. And yet, there's only maybe one that's doing it right now. And a lot of people have spent a lot of time getting the permits, and they haven't actually gotten the permits. And there's a lot of people who oppose it for reasons that are not clear to me. And I would like to ask you about that for the second half of our little discussion here. What's going on in open ocean aquaculture, and why aren't we generating tons of product right now?
Okay, this issue, although has a great potential, there's no doubt about it, because the possibilities of growing fish in the marine environment has been tested already. This I can tell you for sure because I was involved in it in Israel. I was involved in it in Europe. The salmon industry, I think it's a proven concept. It works. Okay. There were hurdles like anything else, but you have to remember the whole concept of the modern aquaculture, it's a baby. It's relatively new because if you talk about agriculture started in the Fertile Crescent the area where I came from, Mesopotamia area,
That was the original
10,000
agriculture, yeah.
10,000 years ago.
Right after we stood up.
It took a while, right? It took a while until we still struggle with certain agriculture product.
Yeah.
It's not the end of it. We still have to deal with a lot of issues and improve ourselves. So aquaculture is relatively young because up until now, for many, many years, fisheries was the main thing. But what is fisheries? Is hunting. Okay? People go out and they hunt in public domain something that they never invested in. It was grown by nature or by God or whatever you want to believe in, but they did not invest in the seeds. That means the young ones. They did not invest in the reproduction part. They did not invest in the grow out part. They did not invest in feed. It was roaming in the
That
fields.
worked well for a long time.
It worked well. The bisons are gone. Now you have to grow your own cow
Yeah.
or your own buffalo
Yeah.
today, which is even
Yeah.
very rare.
Yeah.
Now, the same with the fish. People went, and we call it, we have classes. In the ATOL program, we have a wonderful lecturer, a researcher, a scientist from University of Hawaii, Manoa, named Dr. Paul Binfang. And he's talking about the tragedy of the common. That means the fact that people went into common water and just took whatever belonged to everybody and made money out of it, eventually it caused a depletion of the resources. Because every time you talk about resources, within this word, it means limitations. That means eventually, if you don't manage resources in the right way, they're going to be gone. And that's what happened to the cod industry, for example.
To the what?
Cod industry, fish named cod.
Cod.
Yeah, COD. So
There's no more cod.
you cannot fish it. It's gone. Because if you take the fathers and the mothers and you stop the reproduction, there's no more fish.
Yeah.
I mean, there are, if you go look back into the Hawaiian society,
Yeah.
they had very strict regulations about what can you take out of the land, what can you take out of the sea. And they had the kapu system. And the kapu system was very strict. We don't have the kapu system. We are very laid back for many years. And if
Everybody
people-
takes what they want.
And, well, the United States eventually start doing a pretty good job by dividing the different areas of the fisheries into sections and areas that are being controlled and actually doing statistic every year.
But that's only in the contiguous waters of the United States,
Correct.
right?
But in general, what happened is, until the 70s, we got about 60 to 70 million tons of fish worldwide. And since mid-70s, the fisheries industry, they cannot get more fish, no matter how better equipment they have. And you have to remember, two crucial things happen in the fisheries. Developments that cause actually a faster rate, a higher rate of depletion of the fish. One of them is the invention of refrigeration and freezing. Before that, you could go so much out, and within a very limited time, you must come back with the fish, because otherwise they go bad.
So it was a limitation.
So the moment you invented the refrigeration and freezing, you can stay for months out there and keep fishing and fishing.
And they did, and they do.
The other thing was, after the World War II, they invented something amazing, something that will detect submarines, the sonar. No, we are not in a war with Germany anymore or with Japan. So what are you going to use the sonar? Let's look for fish. So in the past, the fisherman had to be a very sophisticated person, know the ocean, look at the situation, understand, and it was what we call it a fair fight with the fish. How to get the fish.
Fair
Now
fight with
every
the
fool
fish.
can turn on the sonar and find the fish.
Yeah. So it's making war on fish is what it is.
That's what happened, exactly. And so the fish were fished in such a rate that they couldn't recover anymore.
Yeah.
And we came to the point these days where the amount of fish produced by, or I say in general, aquaculture product now are going higher for the first time than fisheries product.
Yeah, but going back to the hunter-gatherer notion of what's been going on, there was a conference recently at the law school about, among other things, the law of the seas.
Oh, that's
John
a good
Van
point.
Dyke, who died last year, was very interested in that. And this was sort of the Memorial John Van Dyke Conference, and they came from all over, and some of them talked about this. And you really wonder why the governments of the world, or the United Nations, or somebody hasn't put a lid on this up till now. Now all we talk, it's like global warming and climate change. Now we talk about it's too late to do all that much, and we've already lost traction in redeveloping our fish stocks, and we're in a terrible spot here. Why didn't we fix this earlier? Why didn't we put a lid on it earlier? A man-made, legal, law of the oceans kind of lid. What happened to us?
Well, it's a complex issue. First of all, the people who invested in fisheries made a lot of money.
And had a lot of political power.
And exactly, that was the next thing I wanted to say. It has to do with politics, because the subsidies to fisheries are, in my opinion, when I look back into it, much greater than subsidies to aquaculture, which is surprising. Now, if you talk about law of the sea, you have to mention a guy that is amazing, John Pena Craven.
John Craven.
Exactly.
We know John Craven.
Well, John Craven was in charge of law of the sea. He was the head of the institute. And it's interesting, many countries actually sign on agreements of law of the sea. The United States did not sign to the day. And this
Sounds
actually,
just like Kyoto, doesn't it?
it's similar, and I think this might put the United States in a very awkward position when other countries going to come closer by to international territorial water, and will start doing things over there, and will put the United States in a disadvantage. And I think we don't want to have that. We want to make sure the United States has authority and is part of the game, of the global game. And this will have impact on future aquaculture in the ocean, which I call mariculture. So just lately I met with John Craven. It was amazing meeting. I mean, the person, he is like, walking encyclopedia. And he so much understands the needs that of the collaboration and the needs to cultivate the ocean to the point, and he knows the potential. The potential is amazing. And I don't think we even scratched the surface of the potential of what we have in the ocean.
You're talking about the potential of open ocean aquaculture with bounded areas for
Any kind. What?
or were you talking about replenishing the fish stocks?
Any kind. That's exactly what I'm saying. Is that we need to tackle the issue from various sides. I mean, we cannot be narrow-minded about that. I mean, man reached the moon and beyond. And if you take all the money that was invested in it, you cannot compare it to what invested in the ocean. If we would invest all those subsidies and the knowledge and the science that we invested in fisheries and they invested in going to other stars in the ocean, we would get the fruits. The other issue that I didn't touch is Hawaii, true, has a great potential, and Hawaii can lease either surface water, or Hawaii can also lease the floor, not the top. They can lease also only the sand part. In some cases, they
How
do.
about something in the middle?
Maybe
How about
yes.
From the
I mean,
sand up,
that's
they can do whatever they want, right?
The Hawaii has
the statute allows that.
Exactly. So, what needed to be done is to look at the legislation. Just lately, a wonderful master student from University of Washington in Seattle came up with a wonderful thesis Lisa Buck Tucker. And I met her in Nashville. We arranged to meet over there because I
Benefit of
organized
Nashville, yeah.
in Nashville because I arranged a special. This was the first time I arranged a meeting for Aquaculture Hub members. We had a wonderful meeting on Saturday over there, and we got together, and people from all over, really all over the world, including one of them came to me and hugged me, and he said, "Hi, Dr. Ron." It's like, "Excuse me," a tall, nice young guy. He's like, "I'm Enrique, your A-tool student." It's like, "Oh, thank you."
So you have progeny
So we
already.
have and we sit together with experts from all over Canada, the United States, and one of the issues we're discussing is really the future of mariculture, the future of open ocean, and in some places, like in Canada and others, they start doing aquaculture systems, multi-trophic. And when I say multi-trophic, we're talking about different trophic levels. When we talk about different trophic levels, it has to do with eating.
On the floor.
Not only the
Slices
I'm
up,
talking
or-
about, when I say trophic, it means it's ecological system
Yeah.
with specialty. That means one trophic level can be plants. That means algae. One trophic level can be mollusks, oysters. One trophic level can be the fish.
Yeah.
And usually we say that those on the top of the trophic levels will be like the tuna fish or the sharks and so forth. And then the plant's going to be relatively on the bottom and the herbivores in the middle. But if you build a multi-trophic system, integrated multi-trophic aquaculture system, or IMTA we call it, then you actually, all the waste product can be used by the plants and can be used by the mollusks that are filter feeders, and you have byproduct right there in this area, and it's going to be a region by which it will be a whole farm with multiple farming and produce.
But this doesn't exist today.
It exists.
Oh.
Yeah, in
With
Canada,
okay.
in some places, they start doing it already. We have the vision that, you know what? Let me give you an example of this sort of integrated multi-trophic aquaculture system. And it's going to blow your mind. Aquaponics. We come back to the beginning of our discussion.
True. You can have different
These are
different
multi-trophic
systems, different
aquaculture.
ecologies.
Exactly.
But the aquaponics are terrestrial.
Doesn't matter. The principle holds.
Principle is the same. So now you take that same concept and you
To
put
the
it in
ocean.
the ocean.
Exactly.
But Hawaii is a special environment. It would be nice if the United States could show the leadership of redeveloping the oceans. That may not happen ever. Who knows what? Be nice if we had the law of the sea that would, be a good sort of
But
incentive.
wait, the
for
United
that.
States have to accept the law of the sea
Well,
first
that's
before
true, it's true.
before you go
We have
into
a
the
long
detail.
way to go
you know?
before that happens. But what I'm thinking of is Hawaii, and you alluded to the fact that Hawaii is a good place for
Right.
it. And I mentioned earlier that
We
Hawaii
have wonderful
lets you-
water here.
wonderful water.
Temperature-wise, clarity, you name
Oh,
it.
it's really outstanding, but we haven't really come along. We could be the center. Talk about being the place of training, the place of the laboratory, the place of giving this incredible gift to the world. This would be the big one. But we haven't done it.
Hold a
What is
second.
holding us up?
I tell you, okay. On top of the fact that we have many agencies that include NOAA,
Did you say many or too many?
I said many.
Okay.
You want to drag me there. So we have many agencies, and they are responsible for various issues that need to be checked. Now, what we would like to see for the farmer, for me, is the customer who wish to bring investors and invest in a farm in order to feed people.
Open ocean aquaculture.
Any
farm.
kind of marine aquaculture, okay?
All right.
When you talk about marine, right away you have one of the agencies is Army Corps of Engineers, because they are in charge of the navigation water, what's called.
Yeah, navigable waters.
Navigable, yeah. So even a river that you can run a boat in it, you have to talk to them and get a permit. You need to talk to NOAA. You need to talk to DLNR. You need to talk to Department of Health and so forth and so forth. So
Good thing I didn't have a heavy lunch. This is really troublesome that you have to talk to these different silos about
but the
everything.
idea is eventually, and that's what we are trying to do here and work on it, and among other, the people I work with is Al Iverson from NOAA, who is the aquaculture coordinator for the whole Pacific, and Todd Lowe from Department of Ag. And what we would like to see is a one-stop shop where the farmer, the investor come in, get the list of things they need to take care of, and eventually go out and
It's a permitting one-stop shop.
permitting.
So how do you do that? How do you
well,
establish
so
that?
one of the first things that we do is we are really looking carefully at what we call it the ocean monitoring, because we realize that one of the points that need to be taken care of is no pollution, no waste that will have impact on the surrounding and on the environment, either on the short term or the long term, or even starting to calculate and do some measurement that will predict what happened if you stop the farm there, what left behind, and how fast this area going to
It's kind
recover.
of a sophisticated environmental
Exactly.
impact.
So now
statement.
there are modeling. There are people who are expert, like Jack Ransel, who came lately and showed us his model. There are people who work on modeling. There are people in European are ahead of us in many
Modeling
things.
accepted by as a way to write an environmental impact statement?
Well, it's not theoretical modeling, because they build a model upon real measurements, and then they build software that you can deduct from the real measurements
Yeah.
and try to predict whatever future
Different scenarios and all that.
future component going to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Now, this is one of the things that we need to make sure that, first of all, let's take care of the monitoring. The next step, and while doing it, there's something that, if you remember, we had a very important workshop in 2011 called Visioning the Future of Aquaculture in Hawaii. And I have done that workshop in collaboration with Hawaii Humpback Whale National
Oh.
Sanctuaries.
Okay.
Okay. So it was good collaboration with the superintendent, Malia Chow. And we gathered a special advisory team that came from different communities, either researchers or people from DLNR, from NOAA, from Department of Ag, Hawaiian cultural experts, and so forth. And people from the Hawaiian fish ponds, because we wanted to have a cumulative of core people that will invite other people into the workshop. So now, although I'm a scientist, coming from endocrinology, zoology, so forth, and I'm into social science, because we're talking about now a new era. We need to talk, we need to consult with everybody, because the oceans are not belonging to a particular person. We live in a big environment and in a big culture. And we need to consider the Hawaiian culture. We need to consider the people who live by the shore. We need to consider the people who have shipping. We need to worry about the whale and about the monk seal, and et cetera, et cetera. So
Some of these people are going to know much more about what you and I have been talking about for the past hour than others.
that's why you bring them together into workshops and you discuss these things. And I believe that, and this is why I started going and learning more and organizing more coastal and marine spatial planning workshops. And just lately, I organized together with a good partner, Peter Becker, from California, Northern California, a whole day workshop in collaboration with people from Europe who came specially to work with us, and we called it Coexist Project. And we were working all day in Las Vegas in the Aquaculture America meeting.
But you're describing conferences and meetings and,
Right.
the opportunity for all the players and the constituents to share their thoughts, but it's talk. What about the action that takes us, to beat the race, so to speak, for the loss of our fisheries?
Well,
When do we got to do that, and how are we going to get there?
I think what will happen is quite natural. Human beings survive eventually. We know that.
So far,
I mean, we did terrible things to each other as human
we
beings.
have 1 minute more.
And what we learned, if you look back in history, that somehow when push come to shove, we were able to overcome problems that we had in a very wonderful way. One way or another, we find a solution for the most part. So, we used to be analogs, now digital. Why? It works, right? So when you have a problem, eventually the common sense wins. I hope so. In this
This
case
is the
too.
question of perfectibility of mankind and womankind.
Exactly. Now, I think that the mother of invention is necessity. So what happened is, when we run out of fish, when we run out of seafood, somebody in the right place, and maybe many somebody, will say, okay, enough is enough. We need to get ourselves together into it.
Maybe that's you, maybe it's me.
We can be only catalyst,
Well,
and we do. We
okay.
trigger. We push the nerve again and again.
Thank
but
you for being a
eventually,
catalyst.
eventually
Ron.
we're gonna have the guys at
Aquaculture specialist.
DC helping us.
University of Hawaii.
Thank you.
In the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources. It is always an amazing experience to
Thank you
talk
so
to
much. Same here.
Aloha.